Hello, huge movie fanatic Nate, stopping on by. This time I'm coming at you to review the fifth and hopefully last Rambo film in the exciting and, I don't know, in this case of this movie, I'm afraid kind of disappointing Rambo franchise. I'm coming at you to review Rambo Last Blood. So before I start my review of the movie, I do want to say that, being the age I am, I grew up with the Rambo Trilogy. I actually saw three in the theater, and then I saw at a drive-in actually in the summer of, would it have been '88, and then we would see it again at a at a second run theater in that year as well. And I grew up with Rambo First Blood Part 2 and Rambo 3. I wouldn't really see First Blood until I was older, like a teenager and stuff, but I grew up with all three Rambo movies, and very much with like the Indiana Jones movies. I do, even though there's a fourth and now a fifth Rambo movie and a fourth Indiana Jones movie, I don't really consider, the fourth and fifth Rambo movie necessarily, or the fourth Indiana Jones movie necessarily a part of the trilogy. Those movies, the first three movies of those trilogies, lived in the '80s. They started in the early '80s and ended in the late '80s. So for me, like, the Rambo trilogy is still kind of like the ultimate trilogy, and same with Indiana Jones movies. Not that I'm as big of an Indiana Jones fan as I am a Rambo fan, but and for me, Rambo 4, or just Rambo, we'll just say Rambo 4, is it's, although it's good, and it really caught a lot of us by surprise, I think, with its kind of ultra violence and all this and that. I mean, I think it really pushed the envelope and as I said, caught a lot of us by surprise, and it's just like, holy crap, that really goes there. I mean, it's just a bummer, the trend that Hollywood was doing in the 2008 and 2007, 2008 and all this stuff, where they're just making a fourth sequel to a movie that hadn't, franchise that lived in the '80s. It was just really weird. So I mean, I do regard Rambo 4 as being better than Indiana Jones 4, and it is good on its own right, and it was great, and I'm glad it exists, and it was great to see Rambo back. But I'm just trying to say very long-windedly, as always, that for me, it's just like Rambo, the trilogy is to me just the ultimate Rambo movies, and 4 and 5 are well, especially 5 in my opinion, are just kind of afterthoughts. So on to my review of Rambo. We'll just say Rambo. Well, I was going to say Rambo 5, Rambo Last Blood. Having just seen it on Saturday. I was relatively excited about this, movie. I mean, it's been in development for a long time. I mean, we've known for at least the past 5 or 6 years what the plot line was for this movie. I don't understand really why it took so long to make it, and it's one of my problems with it. I just feel like I wish they would have made this sooner, after whatchamacallit, Rambo 4, but then they wouldn't have had, the time to have him get to know his niece or whatever for any kind of amount of time. So maybe that's the reason they waited so long to make this or whatever. But we've known for, like I say, 5 or 6 years or more that the premise for this was something to do with the Mexican cartel and all this and that. And I don't know if we knew at the time that his niece was going to get kidnapped or whatever and stuff, but we've known about this movie. Rambo fans have known about the movie and the premise for a long time, having seen it. One thing before I start the review, I just want to say, the first trailer was kind of cool, but as I didn't review any more than trailers 2 and 3 or anything like that, but as the trailers kept coming out, and of course I never mentioned it until now, I was getting, the more we were seeing of it, the more I was getting kind of worried about, maybe this is, I got kind of more worried and just oh, bummer. First thing I do want to say, and I said it in my review of the first trailer for this movie that came out, is for me it's I don't know, the hair. I mean, let's face it, it's a big deal, and to have Rambo have just a normal, non-long hair for me was a big deal. It was a big deal. Feel free to let me know in the comments what you think about that. To me, I mean, he had the long hair in the fourth one, and I don't know. To me, that was just probably one of the biggest. I mean, one could call it a small issue with the movie, but at the same time, it's not really a small issue. It's kind of a big issue, and no. I think he even did the bandana thing around his his forehead or whatever in the fourth one, didn't he? I mean, he had no, if you're not going to do long hair, at least toward the end of the movie, put the bandana around your head or something. I don't know. To me, you know, if you got to do at least one of those things, and preferably both of them for a Rambo movie. That it may seem petty, but that, you know, to me was a big disappointment, and you know, something I voiced in my review of the first trailer that came out is the long hair is gone, and that's just kind of a bummer. Um, uh, what can I say? I really didn't like the the first hour of this movie. It was absolutely, totally depressing. The first maybe 15 minutes or whatever, where we get introduced to Rambo's, you know, home life and, you know, that ranch or whatever was probably formerly his dad's or something like that. It probably was a Rambo family ranch or something like that. That I like that stuff, you know, and being reintroduced into Rambo, and you know, for the first time since we were introduced to the character, we're seeing him in like a, you know, in home life. And to be honest, I could have watched 45 minutes or an hour of that, you know, instead of having so much of the first, you know, hour of the movie be about, you know, well, I'll just say it. I mean, oh, there's another thing. This movie's going to have spoilers in it. If you haven't seen it and don't want to, you know, get spoiled, you might not want to watch this review. You know, obviously we knew that, you know, the the niece gets, basically she's got this dad that left her and her mom, and I think her mom ended up dying of, you know, something or other. So she doesn't, I don't even know who that Mexican woman that like lives with Rambo is, if she's the aunt of, you know, or the aunt, maybe the aunt of the girl. I don't even know the dynamics, but you know, this girl basically, you know, the dad left when she was really young, left her and mom when she was really young. I think mom died. This girl's got this just vendetta to go, you know, a friend of hers, this shady friend of hers found in Mexico where her dad lives. So it's just this shtick about, oh, I want to go, you know, visit dad, and you know, Rambo and I would assume aunt or something like that are like, no, you don't want to, he's a piece of trash, you don't go. And she's like, okay, I won't. And then later on she's like, I want to go once again visit or go see my dad, and it's just like, oh, okay, I won't. I think it happens like twice, which I thought was dumb. Just, you know, once is enough. And then of course she goes out in the car. It seems like almost immediately after the second time she's wanted to go and said I won't or something, like she gets in the car and actually goes. They must be right by the border, because in the movie it just seems like, you know, it's just like a 20-minute drive from, you know, the ranch in Arizona, the Rambo ranch in Arizona, to where dad lives. But obviously they probably just, you know, cut or whatever for, you know, save time or whatever. That's one thing I do want to say that's good about this movie in particular, since I don't really like the majority of it, is that it's only like 93 or something minutes long. You know, they're under 100 minutes long, so that was good anyway. At least it wasn't 2 hours and 15 minutes or whatever, you know, and 2 hours of torturous, you know, hell, you know, Mexican, you know, prostitution cartel bullshit. But that was my biggest problem with the movie. She gets down to Mexico, and they make Mexico, you know, seem all seedy and shady, and I don't know, having never been there, maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but the way it's portrayed in this movie is just nasty. This friend that found her dad and she meets up with in Mexico is just nasty, and you know, takes her to where dad is. Obviously, you know, she talks to dad, and dad's an asshole, and then the shady friends wants to cheer her up, takes her to this club, and you know, basically where these, you know, this Mexican cartel that basically steals women and puts them into slave, you know, prostitution, whatever the hell you call it, and keeps them drugged and threatens to kill them if they ever leave, and basically kidnaps girls and prostitutes them out or whatever. And so basically, obviously, that ends up happening with Rambo's niece, and you know, it's just like, oh my God. It's just, you know, basically the first hour of this movie is just kind of setting the reason for why, you know, he does what he does for the last 20 or 25 minutes, the fun stuff of the movie, if you will, the actual stuff that's kind of fun. And I kind of feel like a pervert saying that because it's the violent, you know, payback stuff or whatever, but it's just kind of, oh my gosh. I mean, I didn't know the first half or the first hour of this movie was going to be so just, you know, seedy and shady and just depressing, and you know, oh, you know, just, oh my God. So I think, oh geez, maybe we'll just leave that part at that for that, because, oh my gosh. Of course, Rambo finds out about, you know, that she went down there, and you know, that's, you know, the parts with, you know, Rambo are more watchable. The stuff that I really just hate is just, you know, the stuff that's going on with the cartel, and, you know, the girls into slave prostitution or whatever the hell you want to call it. The stuff with Rambo is always kind of fun. So it goes, in the violent stuff with Rambo, just like with 4, I was kind of glad to see that the violence kind of went there and kind of, it kind of stayed on the same level as the violence in part 4, where it was a little ultra-violent, maybe not as ultra-violent, maybe not as much as it was in 4, but it was still that kind of Rambo 4-ish kind of violence that was a little more violent than you'd find in your average action movie kind of thing. And when he goes down there and starts, kicking ass to find out where she's held and all this stuff, and then he gets his ass beaten, and it's kind of unrealistic that one of the, I think they're brothers, like the drug cartel or the prostitution cartel, like the guys are brothers, and one of them was like, we'll leave our mark on his face and on his bitch's face and let him live so you can know every single moment that she's suffering, and you'll know every moment for the rest of your life. So I mean, it's kind of an excuse why they let him live. I mean, it's kind of unrealistic that they let him live. They could have easily killed him. And of course, he I don't know, he's rescued by this, basically left for dead, and he's rescued by this journalist who also had I don't know if it was a daughter or maybe a niece also, who got, kidnapped into this prostitution cartel and got, ended up dying and stuff. So she saves him. That's kind of fake, in a way. I mean, it's just, I don't know. So whatever. So I don't remember if he goes back home to recuperate. Probably not. No, he just recuperates for a little bit, and then I think he goes and basically kidnaps her or something, and then, or not kidnaps her, rescues her rather, and takes her, starts taking her back. And I was like, oh my gosh, and she ends up dying, because of the drugs they gave her and stuff. So she dies on the car ride. And it was actually, I gotta admit, as much as I don't really like this movie, the scene when he was, saying about how much that, he just finds there to be no good in the world, or nothing, really good, and she was one of the only things that was good about the world for him and that he was living for and stuff. And well, just moments after he told her that, she just dies, a tear kind of comes out of her eye, and she just dies because of the OD or the drugs or whatever, And I was like, oh my God, I didn't know, this movie's already been depressing up until this point. Now we get the ultimate depressing where the character dies, and it's just like, oh my God, Possibly one of the most, obviously that happened in Rambo, 2 as well and stuff, but possibly one of the most, kind of depressing moments in the whole franchise, just like, oh my God. But of course, as, it does what it's supposed to do, which is to really give fuel to the fire for the revenge aspect of the movie, and it's really kind of cool. I guess he goes back down there to Mexico or whatever and kills one of the brothers, I think. It was kind of cool how he just left the body tied up to the bed with no head, and kind of driving back up to Arizona, he just drops the head on the roadway. It's just like, oh man, those parts were like cool. I was just like, too bad you had to watch like an hour of depressing, prostitution, Mexican prostitution cartel to get to that aspect. So I mean, that's for me what I can only imagine is like the first hour of this movie, which is just like, when I was watching in the theater, I'm like, I'm never gonna want to watch this stuff again. Like, the Rambo stuff within the first hour is cool, but I'm not gonna, thank goodness for like, on DVDs and Blu-rays, like chapter stops and stuff, because I think, I don't generally use them when I watch movies, but I think this is gonna be like, if I own this movie, which I probably will at some point, I think I'm going to be using them chapter stops and skipping over that seedy crap with her finding her dad and stuff in Mexico, and just pretty much, watch the Rambo parts of this movie, because it's just, and not him getting his ass kicked either, just the Rambo kicking ass parts of this movie. I'll do like the Nate cut, it'll probably be like 30 or, 35 or 40 minutes long or whatever, and I'll just, do my, thumb on the chapter stops or whatever. But of course the last, what I would regard as probably the last half hour or 25 minutes or so is, him making the traps and all this stuff at his place. He's got these underground tunnels, which I didn't mention. It was really no good reason why he dug these, really, other than to just have a place to kick ass at the end of the movie. It's kind of funny how he dug these tunnels, and early on in the movie he's like down in the tunnels fixing them or something, and then he has this flashback from Nam or something like that, and I'm like, well, why, maybe that's why the character made him, is because he kind of, he spent so much of his life like in, out of the country, in the like, areas in Burma and all this kind of stuff, that maybe in a way it was like, by making them underground tunnels, it was kind of a way to make his home, the home away from home, or whatever. But it's just kind of like he built the tunnels, and he's at the same time he's like tormented when he's in them. So I don't know, either enjoy the tunnels or fill them back in or whatever. But obviously, the end of the movie when he sets up all his traps and all this kind of stuff and is really cool, and pretty much what everyone went to the movie to see. My problem with it, unlike all the first four movies. And even, I would regard 4 as so much better than this, because even the stuff that leads up to, the kick-ass last half of 4 is still watchable. I mean, I don't really like them missionary bullshit and whatever and stuff, but at least it's watchable, and whereas the first hour of this, I think, is mostly, the stuff that doesn't have Rambo in it is just mostly just, oh my gosh. But obviously, him kicking ass at the end is really cool. One thing I do want to say is they keep his bow and arrow use to a minimum in this movie, which I guess was an okay decision, because it makes it, he only uses the bow and arrow at the end of the movie, and just like a couple times, and it makes it more, the less he uses it, it makes it more impactful when he does use it. So I do want to say that even though, the head, or the long hair is gone and the headband's gone, like when he uses the bow and arrow for the limited amount of time he uses in this movie, like that, and he gets into those poses where he's got it, pulls the thing back and is aiming and all that stuff, like that, Rambo is back. Like when he's got the bow and arrow bit, when he's doing it in this movie, it's like, yes, that, even though he's got no long hair or bandana, or at least he's got his bow and arrow and stuff. So, I will say what he does to the cartel, that, obviously he leaves a calling card by killing the one brother in Mexico and stuff. So to have them come and try to kill him or whatever, and so he can kill them. And so obviously the last part of the movie where he's doing all that stuff is kind of cool. I was really kind of surprised and disappointed. One of my biggest complaints with the movie, besides just being completely depressing the first like hour, is, during the I kind of think it ruined that scene at the end where he's kicking ass, when he actually like presses play on a tape and plays a song, like when he's kicking ass. I'm just like, oh god, I thought that was, I don't know, I thought it was out of character. One could say that it kind of, by having that loud music, it kind of, might hide the sound of him running around or whatever, which is something that is understandable. But from just a standpoint of, I don't know, the character, I just thought it was, I don't know, it's like something you'd see in us, like you've seen in other movies, and I just didn't feel like it went well with the Rambo character. Like it just seemed like kind of became a joke at that point or something like that, and it was just like, oh, I was really glad when that guy shot up the speaker, because I was like, I mean, it's kind of cool, but mostly I just didn't feel like that was within the character of Rambo to play music while he's killing. So just like which pretty much happens all the time in Rambo movies, he ends up getting shot like in 2 or 3 spots or whatever, and after he ends up kicking ass, or actually before he does all this, that Mexican woman, which was probably that girl's niece or whatever, left, and that's after she left, then he set up all his Home Alone, on the Rambo Ranch stuff, and pretty much after he kicks ass, he's just talking, where he's got a narration to the camera, and it's just like, everything I ever loved is gone. Sits on the rocking chair on the porch, and he's just like, I'm gonna continue to fight for their memories, and whatever's good, that's blah blah blah. I don't know, it's just like, oh my gosh. And then there's kind of a half-ass, like at the end of Freddy's Dead, showing like clips and little bits and scenes of, First Blood, Rambo 2, Rambo 3, and even 4, and then they show even 5, so it's like, if you want to see the whole franchise, just watch the end credits of Rambo Last Blood. But I found that the selections of a lot of those shots that they use just to be almost random, and just not even selected necessarily in what I would consider that effective or competent of a selection of those clips and shots, and it's just like the color timing on the stuff just sucked, and oh my god, I'm really kind of bummed to, I was really impressed with, Rambo 4 when we saw it in the theater, and it's just a bummer to be such a letdown with Rambo Last Blood. But you know, I saw interviews online about him talking about, you know, if someone asked him, is this the last one? He's like, I don't, you know, I don't want to say, you know, I don't really want to say either way. I mean, I don't want to say, you never know if it's the last or not. And I'm like, oh my, after I watched this, I'm like, I sure as hell hope it is. In particular, just because of, you know, him showing those clips of all the movies and stuff. I just, let's in particular the title too, of course, you know, so I've seen, you know, jokes on forums and stuff. I know it's bright, just bear with me. Jokes on forums about a sequel to this being called Rambo Last Blood Part 2, and it's just like, yeah, that'd be an awesome title, Last Blood Part 2, because they did First Blood Part 2, so, you know, why not do, you know, who knows, if this does well, which I don't really see it doing very well, would be kind of funny to have. They got to do it sooner than 10 years, though, like within the next couple of years. Rambo Last Blood Part 2 would be really kind of funny. Or Last Blood, you know, Part 2, the final chapter, whatever. I mean, you could do all kinds of things with the title, but unfortunately I can only go as high as 1 star to 4 stars for Rambo Last Blood. Yes, that's the truth. That's, like I say, I can't, you know, the end, I don't see, the end was cool, but, you know, it wasn't even as cool as, I don't know, I was kind of hoping it'd be. In particular with that bit, him playing the music. So in the first hour for me just being mostly depressing, that's as high, 1 star to 4 stars is as high as I'm going to be able to go for Rambo, you know, for all intents and purposes 5, and Rambo Last Blood. I think I gave the 4th one 2 stars. You know, the reviews of the Rambos 1 through 4 are also on this channel as well. So I'm pretty sure that, you know, I mean, obviously for me as they go on, they just kind of get worse. I don't know, maybe my star rating for 2 and 3 were the same, I don't remember, but you know, yeah, so I guess that'll pretty much be my review for Rambo Last Blood. As always, feel free to let me know what you thought of it. I mean, obviously if you like it, that's fine, more power to you. I'm not saying you shouldn't like it, I'm just saying how I felt about the movie. It was just a bummer, you know, there's so few movies now that I actually like seeing in the theater and look forward to them coming out on Blu-ray or video so I can buy them and stuff. It's just like that almost never, pretty much never happens anymore. And it's just like, I guess it's a good way to save money, but at the same time, it's like, I miss, you know, looking forward to video releases of movies that were in the theater that I liked, you know, and most of the time I only see a movie once, and it's very, very, very rare that I'll see a movie more than once in the theater, and oh well, I'm just rambling at this point. Thank you very much for watching my review, and as always, we'll catch you on the next one.